Good morning. I'm glad we have such an exciting, talkative, robustful group here today. I'm Connie Evans. It's my pleasure to welcome you. Are you hearing an echo? I think because everybody's mic'd up here or something, probably. But good morning. I'm Connie Evans, President and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. It is such a pleasure to welcome you all to Closing the Digital Divide in Small Business. What's in scope for CRA investment? This is a very special pre-conference event, as we can tell, because the room is totally full almost. So we're excited about the conversation that we will have today. It is my pleasure and honor to actually introduce our MC, if you will, our moderator for today's pre-conference event. Not only is she incredibly steeped in the knowledge that we're about to talk about, Donna Gambrell has spent most of her career working on these critical investment in community, underserved community issues. She had a great career with the FDIC and then has been the longest serving director of the CDFI Fund. I am very proud to say she is now an AEO board member. So please help me in welcoming Donna Gambrell.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie, and good morning, everyone. You all look fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much, Connie and all her team, for the fabulous work that she's done in pulling this conference together. It's just been amazing. And it's what I know Connie does, as always, is to do a tremendous amount of work with just few resources. It's really outstanding to see. You know, I'm so happy that we are here at this pre-conference event to really talk about the framing of moving Main Street forward, which is really the central theme of AEO. And so today we're going to hear conversations about the gaps that small businesses encounter in the area of technology and learn about possible solutions and CRA strategies that can help to close those gaps. To kick off our program, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Ana Alvarez-Boyd, who is the Senior Associate Director of Community Development, Policy, and Research, which is a long title, which means she is juggling a lot of different balls for the Division of Consumer and Community Affairs at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. Ana has over 20 years of very diverse experience in government, corporate, and nonprofit sectors where she's managed housing and mortgage finance, community development and leadership programs at both the national and regional level. And if you want to learn more about her, you are more than free to look at the app for AEO, and that contains her full bio. I've known Ana since we were, children, knee-high to a grasshopper, I like to say. We've spent a tremendous amount of time in the regulatory agencies, not only collaborating, but in some cases scheming to get a lot of things done. So it is my pleasure to welcome Ana Alvarez-Boyd. Ana?
Thank you, Donna. So let's see. So I'm gonna. I've entered the digital age. I think I'm gonna try to use my iPad for for my notes. Everybody can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, good morning. Donna, thank you for that lovely introduction. I have always appreciated working with you and look forward to many, many more years of good collaboration. It is really a pleasure to be here. I actually have been in and out of Detroit over my career, but never had a chance to really spend any time in the city. So I ran around yesterday with an Uber driver and did a couple of things and got to spend a lot of time in your gorgeous art museum, the Detroit Institute of Art, soaking in those Diego Rivera murals, which was just a real pleasure. And then really just talking to the Uber drivers about what's happening in the city. I got really different perspectives. One is in love with this new mayor and thinks he's going to lift everything to a new degree. And then there was another Uber driver who was really on the opposite page and feeling disenfranchised. So there's still so much work to do, and I think all of us doing this work together is what's really important in thinking about the partnerships that bring us all together. So Donna gave an introduction about my title. What we really do in our division is focus on making sure that the governors understand the plight of everyone in the economy. We have a community advisory council that directly meets with the governors twice a year. They develop a report that's public, so you can see how your community representatives are representing what's going on in the community and how they're talking about it directly to our governors and to the chair. It's a process that's open right now. Actually, our application process is open from now until the middle of June. So think about if you'd like to serve. I have to tell you, I have 5 slots open every year, and I normally get between 300 and 400 applications. So it is a really, really difficult thing, but you've got to keep applying and watching it and being a part of the process. And I really would like to see more and more diversity in the applications that we get. So that's really our role, to inform the Board of Governors, to make sure that we're representing the community, all parts of the community throughout the country. So I want to thank all of you for being here, for exploring a few ways that technology and targeted investments can help support small businesses and bridge the digital divide. Let me talk first about what the digital divide is, and then I want to tell you a story. Jordana Barton, who many of you know, who has organized this event and also is just a terrific advisor to us at the Federal Reserve about closing the digital divide. She took me to El Paso, and I'll tell you a little story about how Lael Brainerd and I met people in that community and really came to understand what they were facing by not having any real access to, except for one little school, what that was like. And then I'll talk a little bit about CRA and the strategy there, but you'll hear a lot about that today from the different panelists. So what is the digital divide, right? Let's kind of level set for a minute for everybody in the room. It's the gap between people who have access to broadband services and the opportunity to take advantage of the reach that the internet provides, and those who don't have access or opportunity to that reach. I'm thinking more and more as I think about this issue, it's a public utility. It's water, it's electricity, it's gas, it is those things that we have become used to having, and there's new strategies that we need to be thinking about to fund the digital gap. It should be a public utility for everyone to participate fully in the economy. Broadband has transformed our personal lives, business and commerce, and ultimately the entire economy. Access to broadband has become essential to economic development and has had a positive effect on education and workforce development, health, housing, small business development, and access to financial services. But unfortunately, for many populations, especially low-income and rural communities, it continues to lag. The lack of access in rural communities it's a increasing problem, and I think it's squeezing small businesses out of some of those communities and exacerbating the population, the lack of population in some of those areas as people leave, because really the opportunities just aren't fully there for them. So to further economic opportunities for low-income and underserved populations, we need to undertake efforts to narrow and eliminate this digital divide. That's what we're all here today to kind of wrap our heads around. As part of our work, staff of the Federal Reserve System have identified a variety of successful examples of programs that focus on the adoption of technology and broadband in underserved communities. The Digital Opportunities for the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas is a program that evolved from the work of Jordana Barton, one of the organizers of this session, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. They undertook this work in 2015 to focus on the challenges faced by the residents in the Texas colonias. So for those of you that don't know what a colonia is, It's a low-income, peri-urban, rural, informal settlement along the Texas border. And these areas are characterized really by their lack of basic infrastructure and substandard housing that's often self-built. On a tour that Jordana took us on along the border, we saw some of this housing, and then juxtaposed against, really nice, decent housing for people, but getting there was so difficult. And even when there was nice housing, they often didn't have digital access. We saw children lined up after school waiting to use the 4 or 5 computers in one center. I mean, on so many levels, we have a lot of passion about this particular issue because it's holding people back for medical services, for education, for small business development, on just too many levels, and it's really something we have to figure out together. So we were very moved by this small little local community center that literally had these children lined up as a little army ready. They knew exactly what their queue was and where they would go and how much time they had to do their homework. Think about that when we have our children, probably everybody in this room who has had children or grandchildren, that they have access anywhere they want, right? Half the time we're trying to monitor what the heck they're looking at. So completely different reality that we face versus people in communities that are just completely left out. So the concern about this digital divide at the border region led the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas to convene a collective impact group of community members to discuss the issue and determine possible approaches to solving the problem. And from this meeting, the Digital Opportunities for the Rio Grande Valley was formed. Ultimately, the program was able to identify a goal, the creation of robust fiber optic regional networks that connects the major anchor institutions and provides the infrastructure for companies or co-ops to cost-effectively provide the last mile fiber to the home or Wi-Fi services for LMI residents. So really kind of a specific goal that focuses on bringing it directly to the home. The program is mobilizing resources and working with local governments, local school districts, and municipalities to build and own its own broadband network that will be used as a springboard to incentivize that last mile, the portion of the telecommunications network chain that physically reaches the end user. So the goal is for internet services providers to lease from the municipal network and to provide the last mile services to residents as Google Fiber announced it would do in Huntsville, Alabama. So lots of good models to learn from. It probably really is about figuring out which strategy is going to work in your community based on the resources that you've got to work with. So as part of this session, you'll also be discussing how CRA can support small business growth and development through broadband investment and through increased technology use. First, we'll focus on how CRA investment can be used as a tool to help small businesses bridge the digital divide through broadband investments. And second, we'll illuminate how banks and CDFIs can use financial technology or fintech to source small business loans and build a broader small business customer base, while small business borrowers can use it to find lending institutions offering financial products and services. As everybody in this room knows, small businesses are critical in powering America through its most recent recovery. Nearly 2/3 of net new jobs created since the end of the recession have been generated by small startups and small enterprises. Technology is one of the most powerful game changers for small businesses today. In recent years, we've seen technology help create an army of entrepreneurs. We've seen companies like Square innovate payment technology to enable small businesses to accept debit and credit card payments without high transaction and processing fees. And companies like Intuit, developing inexpensive and easy ways to use financial, accounting, and tax preparation software that's allowed small businesses to easily manage their books, understand their cash flow, invoice their clients, better manage tax reporting and loan applications. We need to support efforts that enable small businesses to access technology, digital tools, and financial marketplace platforms. This will allow them to transform and grow, secure the jobs that they need to create, and expand their operations. By integrating technology into their business operations, small businesses can work more efficiently, reach new markets, and access sources of credit. These are all things that you know extremely well and that we support as regulators. Promoting economic development through small business development is one of the goals of CRA. Broadband infrastructure and access are part of a community's infrastructure that promotes small business development. According to a study by the analysis group Economic, communities where high-speed broadband was widely available enjoyed higher gross domestic product relative to similar communities where gigabit broadband was not widely available. 14 communities in this study enjoyed over $1 billion in additional gross domestic product when they had gigabit broadband widely available in their communities. We see these kinds of differences over and over again. So how do we get to the point where everybody has this kind of opportunity? Another study by the Boston Consulting Group found that the impact of the internet on gross domestic product in the US is $684 billion, or 4.7% of all US economic activity in 2010. Given the economic impact, we can easily say that a key to growing entrepreneurship in the modern economy is to promote the expansion of broadband networks. Broadband investment also leads to more and better internet access, which is a valuable tool that makes basic business processes such as payroll payments more efficient. The internet allows entrepreneurs to capture an audience and customers, sell a product, promote and operate their businesses in a cost-effective and accessible way. Additionally, access to high-speed broadband can help businesses thrive and no longer be dependent on physical proximity to their customers. For some types of businesses, having broadband infrastructure can potentially make geography completely irrelevant. The internet also allows businesses to access platforms and marketplaces and has facilitated potential partners or allies within the same industry. As mobile apps for payments, investing, lending, and a growing suite of financial management services have flourished, much of the discussion has centered on the disruptive nature of the companies to the traditional banking industry. But with disruption, we've also seen an opportunity for business enhancement across a broad range of industries. So clearly, the implications of small business technology access are significant, and banks and financial institutions can play a critical role in expanding broadband access. I think broadband is a public utility, and that's my opinion, not the opinion of the Federal Reserve, or many of my colleagues, actually. And I think public funding should be an element in support of broadband expansion. There are opportunities for banks to blend or layer in the types of investments that they can make. Banks and financial institutions can have an impact on the infrastructure of opportunity in this country by working with a variety of stakeholders, nonprofits, local partners, bringing broadband access and higher adoption to consumers and small businesses in low-income and rural communities. So you're going to have many really good people who've got lots of tools to talk to you about today. This is going to be a terrific conversation. Thank you for letting me open it up, and I'm going to turn it back to Donna.
Great, thank you. Anna, thank you so much for your remarks, and those were fantastic remarks in setting up what the conversations are going to be about in the next couple of hours or so. And what a wonderful segue to our next speaker, Jordana, because Anna talked about the work in the Colonias that the Federal Reserve has been doing, and I remember going there a few years ago along with several other folks, not only from the agencies, but from some CDFIs, including Janie Barrera, who is the CEO of Lift Fund and also an AEO board member. And we were struck by just the high amount of disinvestment in those communities, the lack of technology, housing, everything, the infrastructure, and it was indicative, I think, of so many communities throughout this country that we continue to see in great need. So Jordana, you are up next, and I'm my pleasure to introduce you. Jordana, as Anna mentioned, is a senior advisor for community development for the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. She's also the author of a number of publications, including Closing the Digital Divide, which is a framework for meeting CRA obligations, and she wrote that in 2016. But you've got a great insight, and so you'll be talking today a little bit about not only those underserved urban markets, but also the challenges that rural communities also face in closing that divide. Jordana.
Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you, and I'm glad Anna talked about how we came upon this issue very strongly in the colonias. I wrote the 2015 study of the Texas border colonias for the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, and it was through talking to, I was a mixed method study, quantitative and qualitative, and it was through talking to the families and the business owners, the micro-entrepreneurs, about their experiences, and that we came upon this issue and had to find out how to solve it. Because when I do research for the Federal Reserve in community development, we convene the community after, during the research, it's very active. We're collecting information from communities through focus groups and interviews, and then we convene and they decide what they want to put forward. They wanted to close the digital divide, so, oh my God, Anna, I have to learn fast. Introduce me to everybody in DC. So we did. we didn't know exactly the answer, but we found out how we could be a resource to this local community. And at the same time, the interagency group was taking public comment for the new Q&A and hearing back from all over the country, right? The experiences all over the country, because the digital divide impacts urban, underserved urban areas very distinctly, which we're going to talk about, as well as rural areas. So let's, as Anna said, our natural disclaimer. But as Anna mentioned, broadband is the electricity of today, right? And this is a quote from the FCC. It talks about, like electricity a century ago, broadband is the foundation for economic growth, job creation, global competitiveness, and a better way of life. It's enabling entire new industries, unlocking vast new possibilities, changing how we educate children, deliver healthcare, and so forth, and administer public safety. All of that is, we're just experiencing a rapid change, and the Community Reinvestment Act is designed to be responsive. So we're trying to catch up with all the change. And I wanted to mention all the changes in the economy that Anna alluded to. But we see the growth in automation and technological complexity changing job skills. More digital skills are required. E-commerce and the disruptions in brick and mortar retail, totally changing. Have you seen a mall built recently? The malls are turning into affordable housing units, and they're trying to do creative things with them. But everything has changed. Artificial intelligence advancements augmenting and now replacing labor. So adjusting to all that in manufacturing. Remote models for the provision of services, as we see in telemedicine. I have a piece in a few days coming out on telehealth, because this is such a critical industry. And certainly and when I was with Lift Fund, which was Acción Texas at the time, some of the healthcare industry were our clients. So we know how it impacts that. Of course, banking, which we're going to go into today, and the gig economy, being able to participate in the gig economy, 3D printing, and how that's going to change manufacturing, and already is starting to. Self-driving vehicles completely. The huge trucking industry that Lift Fund, for example, supports in Texas and beyond, all over the country now, is going to be very impacted by self-driving vehicles. So all of that is important. So one of the tools that we have is to update the Community Reinvestment Act. As you know, it was a law passed in '77, and it encourages banks to make loans and investments and provide services in low and moderate income communities. It's intended to be broad, flexible, and responsive to changes in communities. So to the 2016 Q&A, and actually when the new Q&A came out, we were in El Paso on that trip with Governor Brainerd, and Anna said, Jordana, release the report. Because the Q&As were out, and this is the report. I have a few up here, but it's online as well at dallasfed.org. And this is what I'm going to be talking about today. So a very significant update to the Community Reinvestment Act came in 2016. The interagency group included broadband as a form of infrastructure investment and called it an essential community service. No longer can we say it's a luxury that you could have if you can afford. We're saying clearly that it's an essential community service. Under the CRA service test, this is one of the most important updates to the Q&A. Banks should show evidence that their alternative delivery systems using financial technology, online and mobile banking, are being adopted and are effective in providing services to LMI individuals. The key word there is should show evidence. And that's where partnerships with CDFIs come in, who are experts at collecting evidence for the impact on their communities, along with financial institutions that partner with them. So let's look for ways. Basically, we're saying we can have all the technology we want, all these fintech companies, banks partnering so innovatively with fintech companies, but if we don't innovate in reaching low and moderate income people with this technology, we're not going to get the impact we want. Anna and I, we had a workforce development conference in Austin system-wide. All the futurists are predicting greater and greater wealth inequality. But they don't know that we're going to intervene and we're going to close the digital divide so that people are not left out. Because as we see, the reason it was so important to CRA is that it basically meets the primary purpose definition of CRA. It impacts every area of CRA, including what we're going to focus on today, small business development. Just to also note that workforce development, of course, is already a big part of CRA. And I feel like small business development and workforce development, when I was a community development banker, I always thought of those together because the creation of jobs and preparing people for those jobs and entrepreneurship and so forth. But closing the digital skills gap, we'll talk a little bit about preparing workers for the expanding digital economy. That's all part of CRA already. We didn't need a new Q&A to tell you, be responsive, be noticing what's going on in the environment, and let's help people in the current technological advances. Small business development, the group did add an example to include supporting technical assistance for small business in using technology, gave that example. There are many ways, for example, what AEO is doing to innovate in reaching low and moderate entrepreneurs, micro-entrepreneurs and others for access to capital. So that the service test is real important. We all know how important brick and mortar is and has been historically, but what we don't want to miss is the opportunity to innovate in reaching low and moderate income people through mobile and online. The FDIC did a study and proved that it can be very effective or more effective in reaching LMI. We just have to innovate, and that's where today's discussion comes in. So this is the how-to guide for how to implement the new Q&As. It provides resources to CDFIs, nonprofits, and banks for how to meet their CRA obligations. So bottom line, broadband is a platform for all areas of CRA and community development. Talked a little bit about each of those. And as Anna said, the digital divide is the gap between people who have access to broadband and know how to use the internet and those who do not have such access or knowledge. And when this is one of the first charts in this publication, because what I'm trying to give people is evidence and information for your grants as well, right? I try to be very practical. Make the case, but also I'm throwing as many things in there, and I'm writing like I'm running out of time so that I can provide you even more data, but for your grant writing and so forth to support. But the first thing I did was look at US cities with 100,000 or more households and plotted where they fall. And it's a direct correlation. That's another reason why CRA is all about serving low and moderate income communities. Low income people are completely on the wrong side of the digital divide, and they're the ones that are left out. So just made the case beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's directly correlated with income. Detroit, having the lowest median household income, has the least households with internet connection. And I got a call after publishing this publication from Brooke Ellis here, and we started to talk, and we're going to meet today finally. And we were meeting on the phone for some things that they're doing in Detroit, so we can kind of talk about strategy and how we've approached in some of the communities and best practices. So, and there you see, in several in the Dallas Fed district, for example, we have several cities who are on the bottom third, in which El Paso, Dallas, even our home office in Dallas, San Antonio certainly. So, and then I plotted it out so you could just see the direct correlation. And this was a map in 2016 when we had published this publication developed by the Census Bureau based on American Community Survey data. Three MBPs. The official broadband, according to the FCC, is 25 MBPs down and 3 up. This was just at 3 MBPs, but it still shows a distinct the connection to income. If I overlay the map of persistent poverty areas in the country, it's the same map. The Texas border region, areas of Indian countries, Mississippi Delta, Central Appalachia. It's the same map. The red are the least connected, the green are the most connected. And I always tell people, at the Federal Reserve, we can't say we want to turn the country blue or red. Can't talk about that, but we can say we want to turn the country green. And we do. We're determined. And then as I work with different communities, and Dallas was the last one I did. It's weird, I forgot my own home office. But one of the city council members called me when he saw this publication. He said, we can't attract business and investment into South Dallas. It's because of broadband. You're exactly right. And he said, could you help me tell the story? I said, sure I can. So mapped out his all the council districts. And the least connected are the light pink. The most connected, the most adoption of internet and high speeds are in the darker areas. So the pink they don't even have, this is at 10 MBPs. That's the latest, that's the fastest speed that I could glean from the FCC 477 data. And then I overlaid it. This is not this is actually an interactive map, but this is just a picture of it. But as I overlaid income. So as you scroll across the different council districts, you see the lowest income have the least connection again. So he's able to, he and the nonprofits that he's working with are able to tell the story better and show how critical it is to ever have a chance of attracting business and helping young kids with the homework. Basically, Anna was talking about the homework gap, right? Kids not being able to do their homework at home, and increasingly teachers requiring homework. So these maps are, they're useful because they help people starkly see the reality that we're facing in cities and then make a plan around it. So the internet economy, this was just my attempt to draw what it looks like, but increasingly you need digital skills. You need digital skills to even participate in the economy as a consumer. And you need access, and then you need some basic skills to participate in banking. Increasingly, you need digital access to participate in online finance, and we'll talk about why that is. And then you need increasing skills to go up the ladder in employment, with knowing Microsoft Office Suite, to knowing coding and computer programming, and participate at higher levels of employment or as an entrepreneur. The incredible thing that Anna was describing that has happened is that the intelligence of the network is now on the periphery of the network with a person and their computer. And that's very promising for entrepreneurs. With a little code, you could create a Google. With a little code, you can create a Facebook. You can create, all these. But if we leave some people out, if they don't have access, we're not achieving that full, really democratizing benefit, right, for entrepreneurship to flourish. So that was just a little attempt to show what it looks like and how vastly it has changed. And Anna captured some of the information on GDP, how it's impacting the economy, and it has all these spillover effects, right? Because it affects it so much. And I have this quote in the publication, but I thought it captured what's happening with small business. Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has no inventory. And Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. Something interesting is happening, right? Massive change. We better catch up. Can somebody tell me how much time I have? Because I want to. About 5 minutes? So
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So this will be available to you all online, probably. So all the things that not having broadband inhibits, right? Small business development, because access to e-commerce and entrepreneurship, online training, the digital skills gap. So we're talking a lot now. We have these extremes in wealth and income inequality. It's because we have a shrinking middle class. And the reason is because everything has changed in manufacturing and retail jobs, and we haven't quite kept up with people and their digital skills. Middle skills jobs increasingly require digital skills. So to enter, middle skills jobs are those jobs that don't require a college degree, but you can go straight into the workforce like people used to do with manufacturing and have a good opportunities for upward mobility. We've lost a lot of those. There are new opportunities coming up and innovations coming up and preparing young people and people, understanding coding and all of that to go directly into the job market. And so forth. So it affects the supply side, it affects workers, and the demand side. Business, are business going to be able to thrive and grow, meet their audience? Are they going to be able to exist in certain low-income or underserved areas, like the Texas border? One of the reasons we're doing what we're doing, what Anna described, was because we want to transform the economy of the region. Right now we see a huge brain drain, right? Young people going to start businesses in major cities where there's broadband. If we could have broadband, they could be doing their innovative work on the border region. That's just one example. I won't go too much into financial services, but suffice it to say, it's in this publication. Please access it. Everything is changing in finance as we have fewer branches, more things turning digital, and why it's so critical after the Great Recession. But what's most important is that there's an opportunity for innovation here, and that's why we're here today. And just know that this publication gives you best practices, what to look at in your community, because you can solve one thing, like give kids computers, but if they don't have access at home, it's not going to have your end result. So I talk about the 3 legs of the stool, that you have to have broadband access first, and then you can do computer access programs, provide computer refurbishing programs that some really innovative small businesses are doing for local nonprofits to be able to provide families with computers and entrepreneurs with computers. Digital inclusion programs, training programs for entrepreneurs, for example, in using digital and internet to expand their businesses. Those are all under CRA. Best practices are all in here. Some of the most interesting are, I'm talking to local governments a lot because increasingly you have to make your digital inclusion plan as part of your economic development plan. It's no longer a communications plan on the side, or it's an integral part of your economic development. We're doing that in San Antonio and using this as a guide, and other places all over the country have done it and are in the middle of doing it. And it helps bankers because then they can say, oh, my city, I'm following their economic development plan, and it's, it meets their goals for including low and moderate income people, supporting entrepreneurship and business development. So, like Anna said, this is a structural barrier for small businesses, for families, for upward mobility. So this is a great opportunity for banks to work with CDFIs. We're going to create, a panel toward the end of today's meeting. We're going to talk about some examples. I'm not going into those now, but So you'll have several examples to kind of talk about, but we're going to be creating new financial tools around this to solve these issues. Maybe funds, like we do in housing and small business that are managed by CDFIs that can make some of this work in communities possible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Donna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. You've presented a wealth of information for us to think about, and especially in closing the digital divide. And so it's probably only fitting that the next part of our conversation is going to be on a brand new digital tool that will help close that digital divide. So I've asked Connie and Andrew to come up, and I'll just briefly introduce them. Andrew Kress is the CEO of Business Banking at JP Morgan Chase and our conference chair. And Connie Evans, of course, is the president and CEO of AEO. So please welcome them to the stage. And Connie, I'll start with you. And actually, it's the same question for you and Andrew. So thank you again for coming here to share your thoughts about My Way to Credit. Let's begin just by telling the audience a little bit about what it is. What is My Way to Credit? And how does it fit with the strategies, with our own institutional strategies, and what we want to do going forward?
Thank you, Donna. And again, thank you, Andrew, for joining us. Should I go or you want
No,
to start?
please.
No, please. I'm not sure if my mic is actually on. 1 second here. It is on? Okay. Great. So it's an interesting question what My Way to Credit is. We talk about it as a referral marketplace for businesses and their applications for loans that can't be serviced by banks, that can actually match them to CDFIs and other business support services to move them along a path for capital. But I want to step back because we had a number of other names for this work over the 5 or 6 years that we were developing it. Many of you in the room definitely know of the terms of second chance, second look, right? And so when we started this, we were thinking about the need that banks had in terms of taking a second look at some of the loans that they actually just didn't have the capacity for a number of reasons to be able to serve. And so as we started doing that, we went down different paths to figure out what that strategy and solution might look like. And we came upon conversation and wording, Andrew, in the organization that said, well, AEO wants to take business owners from decline, meaning a bank decline, to delight. And so we used to walk around talking that language a lot, going from decline to delight. Well, we thought it was a really clever kind of idea, but we quickly learned that Treasury and banks and others actually weren't that interested in delighting people. At least not using the language of delighting their customers. They have all other kinds of names for it. So as we continued to move this effort forward to try to find a solution, eventually we named it Project Q, and over the years we're now able to talk about it as My Way to Credit, because we really want entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who work very hard every day to not only start, but to develop and then grow their businesses, to really have an opportunity at receiving the capital. And CDFIs are very good in being able to help deliver not just financial capital, but other capital needs to these businesses. But there's a huge gap in terms of who are they, where are they? They don't know. Most businesses never heard of a CDFI or a community lender. And so we needed to really figure out, how can we bridge that gap? How can we make a connection between those who are seeking capital and resources and those who actually have the capital and resources? The last thing I would say, Donna, in terms of answering that question, kind of what is my way to credit, and I think you asked about how it fits into our strategy. AEO's institutional focus is changing the way capital and services flow to underserved entrepreneurs. And as we've heard from the first two speakers, Jordana and Anna, there is no better way right now to think about how do we change the way of everything, but including how capital and services flow. And it's through enabling technology. And so that's how AEO comes to this work and my way to credit. We wanted to harness technology to harness a new marketplace where entrepreneurs, aspiring business owners can actually be delighted, can be matched so that they don't have to walk away from banks and watch and feel their entrepreneurial dreams die in parking lots. And so we're just really glad to have supportive partners who actually see and share this vision of changing the way capital and services flow to underserved entrepreneurs by use of technology and other resources that allow these businesses to move forward. Again, it's all about moving Main Street forward.
First, I'll play on Connie's comment. Every morning when I get up, I do actually think about delighting people, whether it's my wife, my son, or small business in general. I don't wake up saying, how can I ruin someone's day?
Well, I didn't mean that.
So delight, and it's actually funny, we actually use the word delight a lot because when thinking about my way to credit, and I just became CEO of Business Banking about a year ago, so I inherited a lot of the great work that Connie and her team, as well as the foundation and Business Banking, had been doing at Chase for a long time. But when we think about small business, sort of the three pillars that my way to credit is meeting is one, when we think about small business, we don't think about the 4 million small business customers at Chase. We think about all 28 million. We want success for small business to be widespread because the impact that small business has on this country is so great. So one, widespread. Can we reach every small business? Two is collaboration. You can't be successful in life unless you collaborate with others. And so working with a great partner like AEO and knowing that my way to credit is not just a partnership between Chase and AEO, but including all CDFIs to hopefully spread the benefit of my way to credit. And then finally, we already heard from Jordana and Anna and others about innovation and how helpful and useful that can be to small business. It was innovating how we deliver credit to small businesses. And so making it simple, creating a way to credit that if banks aren't able to provide that credit, how do we get that path simply and quickly into the hands of other partners like CDFIs? And then also be able to track the success of those small business owners, because one thing that we've learned early on in my way to credit is small businesses aren't just looking for capital, they're actually looking for mentors and training. And so on a ratio of 2 to 1, they're looking for mentors and training first. So I just overall thinking about success of small business and what we're trying to accomplish together, it's hopefully having a widespread impact. It's hopefully partnering with those who also want to help small business. And then finally, hopefully it's simplifying and innovating the process so that more opportunity can be given to small businesses.
Andrew, that's such a, you said so much that is so true about the vision and the hope and the aspirations, especially that behind partnerships. I think one other piece that I would add for AEO, these partnerships are so important. We have been very fortunate to have great partners in addition to JP Morgan Chase and Woodforest National Bank and Legacy Bank of Texas and others in the room. You mentioned the CDFIs. One of the pieces of this puzzle, if you will, the solution, is creating what AEO likes to talk about as a utility. I think Anna used the word about a public utility. We think our industry, in terms of the microfinance industry, needs utilities and needs infrastructure that would allow many millions and millions and millions of more people to be able to access the services they need. Again, AEO is committed. I think you read our welcome letters, and all of our letters as the conference chair and the board chair of AEO with Daniel, and my letter and other letters, how we talked about the need for inclusion, the importance of building an inclusive economy. And I think when we think about how do you do that, what are the utilities, what's the infrastructure behind that, we have to have these shared utilities. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work with these strong entry partners in opening up or building and opening what we hope will actually be a real utility for the banking small business industry and our community development financial institution industry that's focused on small business. So it's really, that's what it is. You're going to hear, I think, from both of our colleagues right after and shortly about each component of that. Like, why are you doing this? What's happening? And hear from representatives from the network of CDFIs, being able to talk about how we are working and engaging with CDFIs across the country to be part of this solution and have access to this utility.
Great. Thank you both. So Connie and Andrew, I found your remarks delightful.
Finally, someone thinks a banker is delightful.
I'm sure the rest of the audience did as well. We're going to hear from a number of folks after lunch. We're going to take a brief pause just to eat, and then we'll come back in about 25 to 30 minutes and hear from the rest of the group. And I'm really excited to hear not only from Annie Donovan, but from her panel as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Sana. Great intro. Thanks. That was awesome. Please.
I didn't need input.
No. Thank you so much.